Durham report. The only person who's really written about this in any type of serious manner, Charlie Savage in the New York Times. After years of political hype, the Durham inquiry failed to deliver. And of course, he writes it that way because he's not, he's trying to stay as neutral as possible to this whole thing. But the bottom line is, a couple of things that are important to read from Savage's interpretation. You also can find Marcy Wheeler's Twitter thread on this. And you should read it. I read it on recommendation of Thomas Drake, the NSA whistleblower, who got decimated because of his whistleblowing during the Bush years of the big spying program. He suggested on Twitter. Well, that's where it came to my attention. I follow both of them, but I just happened to see it with him because Twitter is so broken now. I don't see anything. In some instances, that's good. Anyways, Charlie Savage writes, he charged no high-level FBI or intelligence official with a crime and acknowledged in a footnote that Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign did nothing prosecutable either. Predictably, the report's actual content, it contained no new major revelations, and it accused the FBI of, quote, you ready for this? Confirmation bias. Which, I mean, to be fair, yeah, it's a problem with the FBI. I would say it's also a problem in terms of like the people that they target. You want to compare the stuff in this Durham report versus, let's say, what they did to people who were
attending mosques,
Muslims, in the aughts.
Exactly.
It accused the FBI of, quote, confirmation bias, rather than making a more explosive conclusion of political bias. I know that's a shocker, but all these Republican appointees to the FBI are not necessarily fans of Hillary Clinton's. It made scant difference in parts of the political arena. In other words, the parts of the political arena he's talking about are on the right and on the supposed, left. And I have no problem with criticizing the FBI. In fact, I have no problem with abolishing the FBI and the CIA. But
it's not because they're too friendly to Democrats.
It's not because they're too friendly they were too mean to the Trump campaign. There were real-world flaws with the Russia investigation, especially how the FBI botched applications to wiretap a former Trump campaign advisor. I can't remember that guy's name. He's a lunatic, incidentally. I met that guy.
What? Papadopoulos?
No.
Oh.
The bald guy. I can't remember. The first guy.
Carter Page.
Carter Page. I met Carter Page. He's a lunatic. I had multiple conversations with him. I mean, he's a lunatic. And in fact, someone was put on parole for 12 months. I talked about this yesterday. A low-level attorney who, what was it that the judge said? Did things that were inappropriately too zealous. Or inappropriately summed up something. But the Justice Department's Inspector General, Michael E. Horowitz, found those problems. In other words, all of that was revealed 2 years ago, at least, leaving Mr. Durham with a depleted hunting grounds. Indeed, credit for Mr. Durham's only courtroom success, a guilty plea by an FBI lawyer who doctored an email during preparations for a wiretap renewal, belongs to Mr. Horowitz, who uncovered the misconduct. Again, that's the guy who got the 12 months probation. Mr. Horowitz kneecapped Mr. Durham's investigation by finding no evidence. And to be clear, that was not his intention. It's just he was doing his job. Finding no evidence in the FBI actions were politically motivated. He also concluded that the basis of, and this is important, this is something that Glenn Greenwald actually conceded on this very program many years ago, that the basis of the Russia inquiry, an Australian diplomat's tip related to the release of Democratic emails hacked by Russia, was sufficient to open a full investigation. Go back. Glenn Greenwald conceded on this very program that the initial investigation was warranted. There's no doubt that members of the media and politicians hyped the investigation, made conclusions that were inappropriate, lied to the American public in some respects. In this very same piece, and we can talk about Bill Barr doing the exact same thing, which doesn't get the same notice. Before Mr. Horowitz released his December 2019 report, Mr. Durham lobbied him to drop that finding. In other words, to drop the finding that the basis of the Russia inquiry was sufficient to open a full investigation. And Durham argued that the FBI should have instead opened a preliminary inquiry instead of a full investigation. But even as Mr. Durham's report questioned whether the FBI should have opened it as a lower level investigation, he stopped short of stating that opening a full one violated any rule. And then it goes down to talk about Bill Barr. His public statements about Mr. Durham's investigation also helped foster perceptions that he had found something big. And this is, I think, the most legitimate criticism of the Russian investigation, is the people around it who, before there were results of the investigation, hyped it. Bill Barr did this with Durham's investigation. And of course, we've seen all the right-wing media do the exact same thing, too.
People get political with these investigations?
It's weird. I know it. I know it. I wish we could return back to the day of Whitewater when no one ever did that. Or Benghazi when no one ever did that.
Dispassionate, disinterested investigation, please.
Right, please. In April 2020, for example, Bill Barr suggested in a Fox News interview that officials could be prosecuted and said, the evidence shows we're not dealing with just mistakes or sloppiness. There is something far more troubling here. Now, I don't know if that evidence went away, but somehow 2 years later, after it's been ripened, not so much. Mr. Durham's use of his law enforcement powers did achieve something. He used court filings to insinuate a theory he never found evidence to charge. I know. A lot of you saying, isn't that prosecutorial misconduct? Well, I don't know. Maybe we should have an investigation of the investigation of the investigation. Right? I mean, the Mueller investigation was 2 years. The Durham investigation was 4 years. Maybe we need to hire another guy to do an investigation of Durham's prosecutorial misconduct for 8 years. You know what I would add to that list was the fact that Bill Barr, for whatever reason, steered the investigation into the Trump re-election campaigns going to Italy and throwing money around to get some dirt, supposedly, on Joe Biden. He used court filings to insinuate a theory he never found evidence to charge, that the Clinton campaign conspired to frame Mr. Trump for collusion. Those filings provided endless fodder for conservative news media. Even after Mr. Durham cases collapsed, some Trump supporters held out hope that his final report would deliver a bombshell. Because remember, we got an inkling of this, I don't know, what was it, a year ago maybe? Or 2 years ago, like when his last attempted conviction fell so flat on its face that he was literally laughed out of the courtroom. Yeah, literally laughed out of a courtroom. It largely consisted of recycled material interlaced with conclusions like Mr. Durham's accusation that the FBI, you ready for this? Displayed a lack of analytical rigor. Well, However, Mr. Durham's own analytical rigor was subject to scrutiny. At one point, he wrote that he had found, quote, no evidence that the FBI ever considered whether Clinton campaign efforts to tie Mr. Trump to Russia might affect its investigation. Yet the same page cited messages by top FBI official and conservative conspiracy sweetheart Peter Strzok or whatever his name is, cautioning colleagues about the Steele dossier in writing, quote, it should be viewed as intended to influence as well as to inform. And whoever commissioned it was, quote, presumed to be connected to the campaign in some way. So in other words, they approached the Steele dossier with the exact same, skepticism as it should have been. The Steele dossier, let's be clear, was not, here, in fact, he writes about this. Mr. Durham's report appeared to nod to the false claim that the Steele dossier was the impetus for the beginning of this investigation, in saying that, quote, information received from politically affiliated persons and entities, end quote, in part had, quote, triggered, in quotes, the inquiry. Yet elsewhere in his report, he acknowledges that the officials who opened the investigation in July of 2016 had not yet seen the dossier, and it was prompted by an Australian diplomat's tip. I think the Australian was there with Papadopoulos, or is that his name? Yep. And Papadopoulos was talking about like back channels they had to the Soviet Union, and this Australian diplomat who was in the bar with the guy was like, this seems like not right.
Yeah, he was like, wait, are you supposed to be telling me this, basically?
Durham also conceded that there was, quote, no question the FBI had an affirmative obligation to closely examine, end quote, that lead. The only person who seems to have spoken the truth about this was Tom Fitton, who works with the Judicial Watch. Maybe he's backed off this, but he wrote, quote, Durham let down the American people with a few and failed prosecutions. In other words, there was nothing there. Donald Trump. Oh, hold on. Let me do this. Donald Trump, disappointed there was no prosecutions in the Durham report, absolutely surprised and stunned. In fact, here he is on Newsmax.
This is the biggest story of maybe in the history of our country, a crime of the century. Look at what they report on other people. I won't mention names. Other people where they're caught cold. Right. They're criminals, and they don't even report. They refuse to. You can't have a scandal if you don't have publicity, to be honest. You cannot have a scandal.
I don't even know who is he talking about? What is he talking about?
Honestly, I don't know who he was referring to.
He's not going to name names. I can't remember.
People are getting away with all sorts of stuff. It's way worse than what I get away with.
Totally.
And I'm a good guy, and I don't even get away with it.
I mean, all these false accusations about selling pardons for $2 million? What are you talking about?
You can only be with publicity.
Do we have Tuberville? This is awesome.
Here is Tommy Tuberville, who I would be willing to wager just about anything I own that he has not read the Durham report.
Yep. Yeah, no, not even you heard it dictated.
No. I don't got time for that. I got to get down. No, I'll tell you what. Get an intern, record it. Maybe I'll listen to it on the way ahead of the golf course.
I can't even talk about it. It's so bad. But if people don't go to jail for this, American people.
It's so bad. I don't even know what it's about. It's like,
Sam, where is your homework? I can't. It's so bad. It's so. It was. I can't even. Boy, that book. I can't even think about it. It was so disturbing. So disturbing. I can't even. I couldn't even. Yeah. He has not read that report at all. 100.
It's so bad.
So bad I can't even talk.
It's so
Ask
bad.
me a question. Go ahead. Ask me a question. No, I'm sorry. That's too bad. It's bringing up too much. I'm gonna vomit. I'm gonna vomit. It's so disgusting to me. Ask me another question. I can't answer it. I'll tell you why. Because it's so bad. I can't even think about it. I don't want to poison my brain with that kind of toxicity.
I can't even talk about it. You know, it's so bad. But if people don't go to jail for this, American people should just stand up and say, listen, enough's enough. Let's don't have elections anymore. I wish there was a special investigation into the voter fraud, because it was outrageous what happened. But nobody wanted to look into it because they were afraid they were going to be called out. And so it is what it is. I hate that it's happened.
This dude did not read it. He had no idea about anything he was talking about. Immediately changed the subject. It's so bad, I'm going to have to talk about something almost completely different right now.
It's so bad. Americans are saying, let's don't have elections anymore.
Why would we bother even vote for the special prosecutor appointed by Bill Barr?
I think he doesn't like election
Why
day.
would we even like the fact that Bill Barr didn't? I can't even say John Durham. I can't even say the name.
He wants to cancel elections because it feels like homework to have to know who to vote for on election day.
I love how this guy is just sitting there going like, you know what I found out with day one in the Senate? I can just lie about everything. I don't have to, like, I was intimidated. I was worried, like, because I'm not that bright. I realized, like, I get there, I could just, you want my comment on the Durham report? I can't even say anything about it.
Yeah,
So horrible. Everybody should just be arrested.
Oliver North should have just been like, during Iran Country, been like, it's so bad.
Westmoreland. Vietnam is so. I can't even talk about it.
I can't even right now.
Where were you on the night of May 5th?
It's so bad. I can't even talk about it.
It's like it's.
McCarthy being like, it's so bad. There's so many. I can't even. What's going on at the State Department?
It's really amazing. It's Newsmax. They ain't going to ask me anything specific. I just need to say everybody needs to be arrested, and we should call off elections.
I was like, whoa, this is something.
So bad. I looked at the words, and they melted my eyes. And I couldn't even.
Like, why do we do politics?
You know what?
anymore?
It was so bad. I was so upset about it. I can't even remember a single word in it. That's how bad it was.
Or even what
all I
it's really
remember
about.
thinking was, I'm reading it. I'm thinking people need to be arrested. We need to arrest somebody, and let's talk about a different subject: how the vote was stolen.
Yeah, it's about voting, right?
Election fraud. Unbelievable.
Let's don't have elections anymore.